Hello and welcome back to Bits and Bobs. Today's video is all about the life and legacy of Henry VIII and the key events of his reign. So firstly, this is Henry VII, the father of Henry VIII. Henry VII was married to this person, Elizabeth of York, who was therefore Henry VIII's mother. Henry VIII was popular and had a successful reign after ending the War of the Roses. And on the 28th of June in 1491, King Henry VIII was born, or as then he was known, Prince Henry. Now it is recorded that Henry VIII had a very nice childhood indeed, learning all things from riding, archery, sports, and even music, which he thoroughly enjoyed in his early years. Henry's elder brother died in 1502, meaning that Prince Henry became heir to the throne in 1502, and then 5 years later, on the 22nd of April 1509, succeeded to the throne. His reign began aged only 17, but now we'll go through the key events of the timeline during the reign of Henry VIII. So firstly, the 11th of June on 1509, he married his first wife, Catherine of Aragon. Later, on the 24th of June 1509, it was the king's coronation, and all went well, and he has the orb and scepter as the usual practice of coronations. In 1511, Henry joins the Holy League against the French, and is required for every man under 40 to learn archery. In 1513, England defeat Scotland and kill their king, and this was the famous Battle of Flodden Field. You can still visit Flodden Field, and it's one of the best preserved medieval fighting grounds. Princess Mary, later Mary I, was born in 1516 to her mother Catherine of Aragon and her father Henry VIII. In 1518, Henry VIII attended a conference in Europe where the leaders, both kings and popes, met up to try and establish an ongoing peace in Europe. In 1525, the spectacular Hampton Court Palace is completed and becomes the residence of King Henry VIII. Henry then seeks divorce from Catherine of Aragon, but the Pope refuses to give this divorce. Spurred on by this, King Henry VIII starts to cut the ties to the Church of Rome and the Pope. Henry would then go on to completely dismiss the authenticity of the Church of Rome, and as we know, created the Church of England, the main church system still used in the country today. Shortly after these massive changes, in 1531, Halley's Comet appeared in the sky. Back in these days, comets were seen as a bad omen to kings, sometimes known as the Fall of Kings, and this no doubt scared the public and Henry that he had made the wrong decision. In 1533, then with his new church system, he was allowed and did divorce Catherine of Aragon. And later that year, he married his second wife, Anne Boleyn. Now, it wasn't long before they had a child as well. This child would go on to be Elizabeth I, another queen, which upset Henry VIII as he wanted a male heir to inherit the throne from him, rather than hand his kingdom over to the hands of a woman, which he didn't like the idea of. In 1533, Henry VIII was excommunicated from the Church of Rome, and in 1534, the Act of Supremacy was passed, giving Henry VIII even more power over the kingdom and his country. Now then, in 1536, Jane Seymour was executed, chopped the head off, and he went to his third wife, Jane Seymour, as we see here. In 56, the Act of Union was passed between Wales and England, meaning Henry VIII now had an even bigger kingdom, with Wales being fully incorporated into England. Jane Seymour died in childbirth, giving birth to this prince here, Prince Edward, who would go on to be Edward VI. By 1540, pretty much all the monasteries had been swapped out for the new church systems, removing the monastery system, which is a more European and linked to the Pope, and now the Church of England had their own churches for their own religious activities. Henry was then married to Anne in January and to July of 1540, after then the marriage was annulled. He also executed Thomas Cromwell for being a traitor to the country. Later then, he married Catherine Howard in 1540, and that marriage only lasted a year after she too lost her head for being a traitor to the country, or at least a traitor in the eyes of Henry VIII. At this time, there was troubling times in Scotland, as the king had passed, leaving only his 6-day-old daughter as an heir, and a young child as queen would be dangerous if people tried to seek and steal her power. In 1543, Henry VIII marries his sixth wife, Catherine Parr. In 1545, during the Battle of Solent, Henry VIII's favourite ship and flagship, the Mary Rose, was sunk with over 500 casualties on board, a tragic day for the fleet of the Navy. By this time, Henry VIII was now entering his 50s, and back in the day, life expectancies were much shorter. He was an old man, and he was also troubled by illnesses, undiagnosed at the time, but we now believe them to be syphilis. He then died aged 55, after a 37-year reign, almost 38 years, on the throne of England. Thank you for watching, please subscribe, and we hope you'll join us again for more history, coins and facts on the Bits and Bobs channel.